Good afternoon. We are on the 14th of September 2021. I'm going to be doing something different for the moment. This book I'm going to be sharing with you. Wise Owl and Barn Owl by Angela Canning. It's strange, she sits near me at church, particularly during COVID-19. I was at the back of the church. I'm now at the front because I read, and it's less distance to go when you're reading, but I was sitting with her, and I've known her since I moved to HEACHAM. I didn't know she was a writer, but she's the one that also loves writing books, and she's got a collection. And this book I'm going to describe now. I might even read part of it, but I'm going to tell you what it's all about. And it's published, it's quite amazing, so it's easier for me to read everything rather than tell you. But it's a true story, a part of her life, way back in the 70s. These two ladies, it's their life and what they did. And they asked her to write about their life, and she was part of their life. And she's been in HEACHAM 25 years now, so that's how long ago it was. So I'll read the blurb from Olympia Publishers before I go to the book, and I'll give you all the details. So any wildlife lovers, and also Enid Blyton lovers, I think this book is for you, because she read some of it to us last night in the lounge here at HEACHAM Wives' first meeting since COVID-19. So it's strange how things work out. And she's been a widow since 2019, so her husband will be mentioned in this as well. So, The Wise Owl and Barn Owl by Angela Canning is a size 205x140, ISBN 9781788309660. The category is biography. UK price $8.99, US $11.99. Extent 217, format paperback, rights Olympia Publishers, territory world, imprint Olympia Publishers. Their number is +44 0203 719 5833. Email publicity@olympiapublishers.com or www.olympiapublishers.com. About the book. By finding an injured pigeon in the Strand, two amazing Variety Club artists, Louis and Yvonne Vaness, first began to care for wild creatures upon their move to Berkshire. They started up their own Newbury Wildlife Hospital, knowing of no other in the country. Foxes, badgers, deer, squirrels, a polecat, bats, and every variety of birds were brought to them. Even an oiled heron, well, I'm a heron, but I'm not very oiled, from as far away as the Clyde. Their experiences were many, from rescuing fox cubs born in a tombstone to separating two male swans involved in combat. Although Louis suffered a sex change and became known as Louise, they pioneered against cruelty to wild creatures for over 30 years, appearing on television several times in programs such as TV's Country Ways and Magpie, and in numerous illustrated articles for the national press. Wise Owl and Barn Owl were their code names for CB radio. About the author, that's my friend and church sister, and she also lives in the same village as me. Angela Canning worked as a secretary for the Hampshire Fire Service in her hometown of Winchester, and she married Arthur, a senior fire officer. When they moved to Newbury, they became friends with Louise and Yvonne Vaness, who taught them how to run their wildlife hospital for them when they went on holiday. They actually moved in and looked after all these creatures. Louis asked Angela if one day she would write their life story, which she did, and she will donate all royalties to a wildlife hospital. As yet, Angela has not chosen that because the book is only just being published, and people bought it last night, some of the wives, and of course I have one here. So I'm going to be sharing about the author. It's what I've just read, so I don't need to read the front page, but I suppose I will. There she is, there's a picture of her. I'll do it all properly. Angela Canning worked as a secretary for the Hampshire Fire Service in her hometown of Winchester and married Arthur, a senior fire officer. When they moved to Newbury, they became friends with Louise and Yvonne Vaness, who taught them how to run their wildlife hospital for them when they went on holiday. Louise asked Angela if one day she would write their life story, which she did, and she will donate all royalties from the book to a wildlife hospital yet to be chosen. Wise Owl and a Barn Owl. It's dedicated in memory of my husband Arthur and to Julia and Richard. So it's published in 2021. The CIP catalogue record for this title is available from the British Library, and I actually saw the pictures which look better out of the book than in the book. I mean, they were beautifully sharp and big and bright. Of course, they were bigger than this book in size. I will read you from the beginning. There's no point in picking out chapters, so I'll see how it goes with chapter 1. Stop that ruddy maniac, called someone, as a mad driver broke the speed limit in the Strand, screeched on 2 wheels past a row of vehicles and careered through the traffic lights. But this was London, and who cared? Time meant money. Time meant catching the tube or bus from Aldwych or a taxi from Fleet Street. Time meant buying fashions in Oxford Street or Regent Street, exchanging currency at the Bank of England or the Stock Exchange, racing the great printing presses to roll off the daily news, and time for Yvonne and myself, as Variety Club artists, meant appearing on stage for the evening performances. Yet, in the gutter, lay something motionless, something injured. It was a feral pigeon, its right wing bleeding underneath where it had received a gash from the car. Its orange eyes gazed in bewilderment. Its metallic green neck feathers illuminated the white and grey of the rest of its body. And as we picked it up, we asked, what do we know about doctoring birds? We knew nothing at all, but we also knew we could not leave it there. Nestled into Yvonne's arms, the creature journeyed home with us, and once in the kitchen, we bathed its wound gently with a mild disinfectant, gave it a drink, and settled it down in a cardboard box with a hot water bottle. It was 6 o'clock. Within an hour and a half our public would be waiting for us. We took the Underground to Tottenham Court Road, and in the dressing room of the Scala Theatre hastily donned our costumes and applied our makeup. Soon the opening music struck up. Back came the curtains and we began our double act, known as the Venices, a play on our names, Louis and Yvonne Vaness. Lively, I performed acrobatics, comic sketches, or tap danced, and then as I strummed George Formby songs upon the ukulele, played country and western music upon the guitar or accordion, Yvonne sang with her lovely soprano voice. What years those were in the 1950s. Tomorrow we were due at Prestatyn for a concert party, the next day at Leicester, and then on to Nottingham, York, and all over the north of England. We had done it countless times, but this time we took an extra passenger with us, a bird, a pigeon, living in the van. Firstly, we had to learn how to feed Percy, who refused absolutely and wilfully to eat. We discovered we had to force feed him, and that the only way to give him food was in a paste. Between rehearsals, while Yvonne held him down, I administered wild bird food mixed with soaked bread down the back of his throat. Walter had to be given by means of a syringe. It was almost a week that we continued this ritual, when to our immense surprise and relief, Percy began to peck for himself, but his wound took far longer to respond. If ever he attempted to fly from my hands, his feeble effort always ended in a thud. It obviously hurt him a great deal, and we continued to apply Acreflex on a cotton wool bud, realizing that he needed plenty of time. Percy, meanwhile, became very knowing. Each morning he greeted us with a "Roo!" and as I held his warm, soft body, he would cling to my fingers as if they were a twig. It gave us the idea to make a perch for him. At the time we were traversing the Welsh Valley, and we found a broken bough which we erected in the van. Percy took to this and settled upon it as if he had used it all his life. He had no objection to the vibration of the engine, and was surely the most travelled pigeon in the whole country. One morning, a month later, when we were in Blackpool, we found to our surprise that he wasn't on his bough. We searched everywhere for him amongst all the props, and eventually discovered him perched upon a travelling case piled up high in the van. He could fly. We attempted to coax him down, and very cautiously he made the effort, taking small lengths at a time. Day by day he became bolder and would fly down for his food. We sensed that he could well fly greater distances if in the open air. 3 days later we returned to London. His wound was healed, and we decided to test his reactions. Taking him gently from his box into the greenery of St. James's Park, we threw him up into the air. Percy sensed the joy of freedom, the ecstasy of life in his body, soared briefly in a westerly direction, then changing course, flew southwards over the trees, without deliberation, until he was out of sight. We watched, both exulted, yet sad. We knew we should never see him again. The next week we were due at the Carlton Club in Nottingham. and at the next at the White Hart at Thorn near Doncaster. Being 10 years older than Yvonne, I had had more years of experience in showbiz, first of all performing whole evening treble acts with Percy Swinscoe and Neville King, the ventriloquist, who later became a top artist in the black and white minstrel show. But when I married Yvonne and she wished to join the group, the other two had insisted that they did not want a fourth member. So she and I had decided to go it alone. Showbiz was a great life, and we continued for 5 years together, performing whole night acts. Then one day, Yvonne's health began to deteriorate. It seemed as if the hectic life was becoming too much for her, and I noticed that she was losing weight. Yet she continued valiantly until several weeks later, when the scales registered an alarming 6 stone. "Right to the surgery," I commanded. The doctor took one look at her over his half glasses and remarked, "Give up or else." It was as if our world had come to an end, but it was our pioneering spirit that carried us through, and when Yvonne had fully recovered, we took every job that we could find. The first was running church clubs for teddy boys in poverty-stricken parts of London, and sweet other uses of adversity, Shakespeare said. With this new life we first discovered what a priceless thing it is to have time for leisure. We had also had time to look after wildlife. Percy had been the source of inspiration to us. He had shown us that there was a place in this world for the nursing of wild creatures, and an idea came to us. Why couldn't we place postcards in shop windows so that the public would bring us their casualties to care for? We tried it, and it worked. It was in August 1964, when we moved to a new job in the town of Newbury in Berkshire, that we decided to open the Newbury Wildlife Hospital, a thing unheard of. Our white board, painted in red, was hung up on the door, and it announced that we were open day and night, and our van was given a headboard to become an ambulance. To our knowledge, it was the first in the country. I'm now going to show you a picture that's in the book. I don't know how long I'll hold it up. I'll have a look myself. It says Yvonne at the wheel and Louis with a Muscovy duck on her lap. Photographer Peter Allen for Farmers Weekly, number B2214, dated 14th of 4th, 1983. So they'd been going since 1964. I got married 16th of August 1964, so this is my time of what have you. Oh, that's the end of chapter 1. So I should stop there and do it one chapter at a time. Well, I hope you like it. What does it say on the back? I'll read what it says on the back of the book and then stop. By finding an injured pigeon in the Strand, two amazing Variety Club artists, Louis and Yvonne Vaness, first began to care for wild creatures. Upon their move to Berkshire, they started up their own Newbury Wildlife Hospital, knowing of no other in the country. Not in those days, they didn't anyway. They probably do a lot more now. People weren't interested in wildlife then, but they are now more. Foxes, badgers, deer, squirrels, a polecat, bats, and every variety of birds were brought to them, even an oiled heron from as far away as the Clyde. Their experiences were many, from rescuing fox cubs born in a tombstone to separating— that's the story that Angela read last night and we all loved it, tombstone foxes, separating two male swans involved in combat. Although Louis suffered a sex change and became known as Louise, they pioneered against cruelty to wild creatures for over 30 years, appearing on television several times in programs such as TV's Country Ways and Magpie, and in numerous illustrated articles for the national press. So Wise Owl and Barn Owl were their code names for CB radio. I think I'll continue doing other videos on this book because I love it as well. It's gorgeous, and I didn't know that lady who sits near me in church was so gifted and talented at writing. I hope the rest is just as good as chapter 1, so you'll be looking out for Wise Owl and Barn Owl chapter 2. And I have her permission last night, verbally, not in writing. We're Christians, we don't need to put anything in writing. Our word is our honour. God bless. I'm going to go and do the Bible stuff now.